Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm coming at you with part 2 of our outstanding crowdfunding games. These are all of the games on Backerkit, IndieGogo, and Gamefound that we have purchased for the SideGame library that have not arrived yet. And some of them may have had parts arrive, some of them still have cycles that are left to continue. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on everything that we've learned from updates, etc., and the things I'm most excited about, the deliveries for these upcoming games. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow. And for those of you already subscribed, thank you so much for the continuous support. Let's talk about all of the outstanding Backerkit, IndieGogo, and Gamefound campaigns. So I'm going to start off with Backerkit. This is one of the most recently released backing, crowdfunding sources. And this one in particular has 2 CMON projects and then something from Greater Than Games. So first CMON project is for the CMON comics. This one here is a collection of mini expansions that are tied to graphic novels. So these graphic novels are for a variety of different games from CMON's library, but we've only gotten the 2 that are connected to our library. So that has to be the original Zombicide 2nd edition, as well as Cthulhu Death May Die. Now, these are special because not only do they include additional promo characters, but they also have additional scenarios. And that's amazing because the originals just had 6 new characters that tied into the graphic novel. It looks like in this case, you're actually getting to play the experience that showed up in this graphic novel. That's awesome, getting to relive something. And I think that's going to make it a little bit more interesting to actually dive into the graphic novel here. The other one is just additional characters, and that is for the original Zombicide, and it makes sense. You have new characters, but it looks like you also have a scenario that's based upon it. The scenarios in Zombicide are a little bit loose, but we'll see if they do a good job of connecting it to that story material. The original Zombicide graphic novel had small vignettes, little stories for each of the different characters. I enjoyed that quite a bit as you saw them meeting up, and you'd also see some recurring characters from the core experience, not just from the expansion content here. So I think that there's a lot to love in these graphic novels, and if you enjoy these games already, it's just more promo content and more scenarios. The next one here is the last one from Greater Than Games, but this one is for Spirit Island Nature Incarnate. This is the newest expansion for Spirit Island. They include additional tokens, upgrades for the game. We got the pledge level that's going to be coming with the new expansion, as well as the additional promo content and the upgraded tokens to go with the rest of our stuff. But Nature Incarnate features the unique take on spirits that actually have a presence on the island. One of the examples, we actually have it in the thumbnail, is a giant turtle that has these pieces that show up on the map. And so wherever the turtle is, he actually has a place on the island where he'll be walking around. And that's the idea, is nature is reflecting where this character is. It's not just the presence tokens, but an actual giant creature that's going to be on the island. I like this concept. It reminds me of the colossal keyword in Hearthstone, where this one spirit just takes up a bunch of space and those tokens are used to reflect that. And it looks like the new scenarios and new cards are going to incorporate this mechanism as well. So that's a lot of fun. Thing I'm most excited for sure is new playstyles for spirits and more stuff to explore. Our last Backerkit project is for another CMON project. This is the Boys expansion for Zombicide, and this includes all of the characters from the series from Amazon Prime. This is also, of course, the comic book that it's originated from, but this definitely has huge inspiration from the TV series. As you can see, the actors are pretty much portrayed exactly in this expansion. So you have the entire 7-pack, which all serve as survivors. You also have the boys themselves, so it's a big survivor pack. And that sounds like a lot of fun to me. One really hilarious thing, if you look here, you can see that there's a laser baby that you can get as a weapon. So that's hilarious. You're digging through a building and you find a child and start to weaponize it. Sounds hilarious. And then this is one of the coolest things, Soup Abomination. So super powerful, terrifying villains in the form of abominations in the game. It makes a lot of sense. I do think it's kind of funny that they aren't actually zombies. They're just superheroes that are helping out this zombie apocalypse. So some weird thematics here, but I think it should be a lot of fun. So that's the Boys expansion. So that's everything for Backerkit. And now we'll move on to the single IndieGogo project. So if you're unfamiliar, it's an actual platform that does a variety of different things and doesn't have a huge emphasis on board games, but every so often a board game project will find its way on here. And this one is for for Street Master's Tide of the Dragon. If you're unfamiliar with this game, it's a MDS system by I believe they're the Sadler brothers. Their whole goal is to create these different decks that you can combine to make unique scenarios. They did the same thing with Alter Quest. That's another one that we've played by them. And this one is a fighting system. You have a board, you have your deck of your fighter, and then you have the scenario and the villain that you're going against. And so you match all these things together and have a unique scenario. Now, they had a huge issue with a bunch of their deliveries on Kickstarter, as well as I believe they had issues with other crowdfunding platforms. So they ended up moving to this one in order to get another reprint of the game, its expansions, as well as a new Tide of the Dragon pack. You also have this Rumble pack that has extra exclusives, but the Tide of the Dragon has just new characters, and it does add, the thing I'm most excited for is additional terrain for the game. So generally you're going to be playing on a specific board, and then this board is going to have a deck that's tied to it, but this feature has terrain that can enhance any of your already existing expansion content. So that means that every single map that you already have is going to get bolstered a little bit more. You also have more loot, everything else, new items. It's just more modular expansions for Street Masters, and if it's a game you already like, I think this is going to be something that you're going to look forward to picking up. That being said, it's been a while since we backed this one, and this company is a little shady. We're still waiting on some other things, just like standard pre-orders from them. So I'm curious when this is going to come out. Hopefully we get it. I enjoy Street Masters, and this looks like more fun content. So that's everything for IndieGogo and Backerkit. Let's move on to the Gamefound projects. Our first Gamefound project is for 51st State. This is in the same line of games as Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North, but this one is a post-apocalyptic setting where you have your base and you're using resources to outfit it with different defenses, summon units, and this expansion adds some new player interaction in the form of some area control in a central board. I like that it plays a variety of player counts, and with this expansion, there's actually reason to play that competitive version where you have that competition going on for specific cards. It was something that was missing from Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North, where even if somebody took a island card that you were looking for or thought might be good for your strategy, you could always just take one from the top of the deck. So there was really nothing lost. There was also some loose player interaction with exhausting your opponent's buildings, and that seemed a little ineffective and pretty inefficient. So it wasn't something anybody really did in the competitive mode. You're kind of just focused on your own thing. So I'm curious to see what sort of things 51st State does to do that. In addition, this Ultimate Edition has everything included, so we don't have to go any expansion hunting or anything like that. It's all here ready to go, and I want to try and play this one. I'm excited. It sounds like a great theme, and the settlement building makes sense in the post-apocalyptic setting. This is one that I'm excited to try, as it is loved by the people that already enjoy it. Next game here is Aeon's Trespass Odyssey. Now, we've actually received cycle 1 of 5 already, and this is a game that we've been waiting for years. So finally, the first portion has come out, and this originally was on Kickstarter, but when we purchased it, it was on Gamefound here, and so that's why I wanted to highlight it on this section. And so this is a 5-cycle, huge, gigantic campaign game. Think something akin to Kingdom Death Monster, where you're getting cycles with their own campaigns. It's a boss battling system where you have 2 distinct phases, where you have a story phase where you're sailing the Argo around different islands, and then you have a boss battling phase where you're fighting these giant primordials using your different titans. So the Argo is like a living ship, and so it's up to you to defend it and also make alliances and travel around ancient Greece, so interacting with the different creatures and myths and gods that are there. I actually have played this game already, and my favorite part about this game for sure is the combat system. I think that's the most fun. The story I'm a little bit less enthused about, as it's a little slow where you're having to do the exploration. Think something like Seventh Continent, where you're flipping tiles and you're visiting different areas. There's a lot of steps in the exploration, so it's not as streamlined as something like Kingdom Death Monster or Oathsworn, where it's very straightforward on this is how much time you have to do if you can complete a certain amount of time. This one is way more freeform, and there's lots of different upgrade paths and things you can purchase. So a lot to explore and enjoy, and I'm excited to see what sort of things they're going to add to bolster the system and go in new directions. Right now, they have about 10 different combats that you can go into, which is a heck of a lot of content. So that's not small by any means, because each of those enemies has multiple different layers, but I'm curious to see what sort of things they add to the player side, because having different monsters and different creatures to fight is always interesting, but I want to see what sort of innovations happen with the characters themselves. There's a cool cooperation mechanism in this game where if you damage something, you can kind of swap between each other, and your hits can leave them exposed and make somebody else hit stronger. I love that concept and that cooperation coordination and trying to sort of combo together to deal big damage. So I'm looking forward to see what comes in on the player side, and I imagine it's going to come in the form of different gear and different items. So that's Aeon, Trespass, Odyssey. Next one here is the expansion for, oh, my bad. Hold on, I accidentally clicked a thing that I shouldn't have. Continue. Okay, here we are. So the next one is Burncycle, the new recruits in a series reprint. So this is just more modular stuff for Burncycle. If you're unfamiliar with this game, it's a stealth-based game by Chip Theory Games where you have this little bot that you're moving around a corporation building, and you're trying to complete some form of objective, and that's where the variability comes from. You pick an objective, you pick a corporation that you're fighting against, and then you combine those two things with a general that works for that corporation. So have your own little board that is programmable with actions. You'll have different chips that you can use to program this Burncycle, which actually determines which actions you can take at stronger levels, and then you're trying to maneuver your different character while being as incognito as possible. You don't want to trigger too many combats because that just increases your awareness and can lead to your ruin. So you're trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. Now, the thing that I think is the coolest about this game is the different abilities on the bots. There's a lack of keywords in this game, which is very different from a Chip Theory Games project, but each of the characters has unique traits. And at the very beginning of the game, you get to actually decide which abilities you want to invest in. So you start with a bunch of XP and you spend it until you get down to like your normal health. And that means that right from the get-go, you have special abilities that make you interesting. I love when games do that, and this one does that right from the beginning. One thing that I didn't really like about this one, though, is there's like this, I think it's called the command module. It's an extra bot that everybody just has to deal with. And it's weird. It's even in a solo game, you have another player that you have to control. And it's kind of weird that you're just lugging along this extra thing. The extra thing adds additional ways to spend your XP to get extra actions for everybody. So it does have its purpose, but it feels a little out of place. And I'm wondering if there's some way that you can potentially remove that with this expansion content. I doubt it, as it looks like it's just more content, some more characters to pick from, more maps, more missions, which is fine. This game is solid and stands on its own. But I do think that that's the thing that is going to keep me from playing it as much as some of Chip Theory's other titles. But a lot of fun here, and the new expansion content has just more missions. And if you like Chip Theory games and Burncycle in general, this is a no-brainer here for this game. Next game is the Castles of Burgundy Special Edition. This one is a reprint of a game that we already know we like, which is awesome. So this is just a super fancy version with acrylic tiles, miniatures if you want. I love that you have the option to use them or not. Huge boards that are going to make things a little bit more visible and clear, and then additional expansions, and of course all of the expansions that already exist for the game. So all these are going to be compiled in one large collector's edition, metal coins, everything you can imagine for a deluxe version of the game. So I love that you also have, as you can see here, comes with an insert, so you're going to get the game played a little bit faster. Love this. That's the perfect thing. You got the bags for the random draw piles. You could buy things like this on Etsy or on the BGG store, so I'm glad that they come included already. Help set up that speed of gameplay, and you've got everything in one spot. One of the coolest things about this, though, it's a small little trait that I think you should know about, is all of the technology tiles actually tell you what they do on the back of them, which is so nice because you can look at them from just picking them up, and you don't have to reference the rule book at all, and it's an easy clarification to flip over the tile just to confirm what your effects are. So that's one of the things I'm the most excited about, is the increased accessibility and usability of the game, as well as just a nice version, as opposed to the most recent collector's anniversary edition that came out a couple of years ago. So that is Castles of Burgundy, the deluxe edition. The next one here is Chronicles of Drunagor, the Age of Darkness Apocalypse. It's Age of Apocalypse. This one has you having a more story-rich version of the original Chronicles of Drunagor. It was featured as one of the games where you could play a solo dungeon crawler. It was the first of its kind of in that space. But then you started getting into other games like Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape, I think is my preferred one at this point. But this has a cube system where you're using them to activate the different actions on your boards. You have specific roles that give you special abilities and powers. You have items that are going to unlock new things that you can assign your cubes to. And then every time you play, you generally have the option to do some sort of leveling up in the form of getting new items, new skills, traits, whether that be class traits or whatever your role is. So as like a defender or a protector. The new content here has more of the campaign, a foreteller app. So they are focusing on that story portion, which I like, because the original story was a little bit long, but a little bit weak. And it looks like the door system is also going to be modified a little bit to make it so it is less of a nuisance to get it set up. And that's the thing I'm most excited for. One thing that prevents me from playing this game a lot is it is a bear to actually just play this game. It reminds me a lot of Mansions of Madness, where if you set it up, every time you unlock something or reveal a room, you have to stop what you're doing, take out all these different tiles, and it screeches that gameplay to a halt. And in addition, you have to sort of rearrange the entire table, because this game uses this 3D terrain where you have to put all of these pieces in specific areas, and they're multi-tiered. But oh man, it's so annoying because you have to stop what you're doing and completely readjust everything. But my favorite thing about this game is the way that it integrates these side stories. As you can see here, there are these add-on packs on the bottom, and a lot of these add-on packs are extra scenarios. And the way they work is, in the storybook for the campaign, it'll say, hey, if you have this expansion, just go to this next mission in that expansion. So if you have expansion content for this, you get to use it right away. There's no, oh, I'm never going to get to use all my content. No, you play with all of it from the beginning. You can shuffle in all your creatures, all your minions, and so you have all that variety from the first game. And in addition, you can use any class, and you can swap in the classes and just reset them to whatever experience level you're at. So I like that, swapping in and out and getting to actually use all your content. It's a lot of fun. It's also this cool exploration stuff where you'll see these huge pictures and only have certain amount of options to pick from. And so you have to very much think about what's going to impact you right now, what sort of things you want to do. There's some cool stuff in Chronicles of Drunagor. So that is Chronicles of Drunagor, Age of Apocalypse. Next game is Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising. This is an expansion, but also standalone for the original Kingdom Rush game. It is a tower defense polyomino game where you have these hordes, these trays that are coming at you and attacking you, and your goal is to use your towers to shoot tetramino pieces at them. If you totally cover them, then you're able to clear them off, gain experience, and then use that experience to buy new towers. And if you use your towers, you're getting rid of stuff on the board, but if you decide to pass and not use your towers, you're upgrading them. I find this is an awesome solo and two-player experience because you are constantly going back and forth to each other, but I don't really like playing it at the multiplayer count. A lot of times I find myself being the person who doesn't actually get to play, and I'm just passing my towers to upgrade them and letting everybody else take their actions, because it's sort of what you have to do in this game. But in the two-player, there's a bit more give and take, where you're like, here, I'll pass this to you, you pass this to me. It's a lot more coordinated and cooperative, and a lot less time taking. In the multiplayer game, this game can take hours because you are having to place the pieces in specific formats, which makes for an extremely satisfying solo experience. So I strongly recommend this one at the solo player count. One of my other favorite parts about this game are the heroes. So you have these little hero dashboards, and they have their own unique piece that is in also the form of a tetramino that you'll place onto pieces, and that will allow you to do other abilities and specials, and you get to do one of those each turn. So you're trying to use your character wisely, but also your pieces and your towers, upgrading them, getting new effects. And there are even boss modes where the boss characters move around the area and you're shooting things at them and trying to complete some form of objective. You've got a big box that's included in this one, so it's going to get the game played a bit more quickly. Love that. Heck yes, that sounds awesome. The other thing that it adds are new legacy style expansion content. So some of the cards you'll be able to add stickers to, and then these stickers will modify the towers permanently or modify different effects. So I don't know how crazy I am about that. It is that sticker process and a campaign style, but I think that if it's just for the single shot scenarios, I'm all here for that. It's going to be more accessible to play and just has more heroes and characters and missions to choose from. So that is Kingdom Rush Elemental Uprising. Next game here is Last Light. This is bid as a 4X game that can be played in an extremely short amount of time, but gives you a simultaneous gameplay experience with all the conquering and negotiating that you might see in one of these large games. I like the idea of this rotating board that's going to be moving around, so it changes where different positions and planets are going to be in relation to your own characters. So you're never certain or safe where you're going to be on the board. And you also have a variety of different factions, everything that you could think of from a 4X game in a shorter time frame. And I think that's going to be the coolest thing about it is you can play this high player count, as you can see, up to 8 players, but it's a shortened experience because of that simultaneous play. So it's going to get played, and it's going to get played by a lot of people. Hopefully this one turns out well. I like the production of most of Gray Fox game stuff. For Science did a really good job with that production after the Empire. I think they did that one, if I'm correct. But for Science, I was very much impressed with their production. So hopefully this one turns out exactly the same. And it is that thing that we're looking for in the library. That's 4X game in a short time frame. Obviously, we picked up some of the extra dice because if you are playing with those 8-player accounts, you'll make sure that everybody has access to them throughout the board. And I think that'll be really helpful as well. So some cool designs too with these sparkly dice and lunar dice. Remind me of like the marble dice sets that you can get from the CMON campaign. So a lot to look forward to here. And hopefully it fits that spot that we're missing in our library. Next game is Oranienburger Kanal. This is actually one of my most anticipated games because of the comparisons to something like Hallertau as well as Glass Road, where you have this resource management system where you are placing out cards onto this is a really bad page. Yep, I don't think it even shows you what the game looks like. It's a really bad page. But the game itself is like this grid of cards, and you're placing cards out, and you get their abilities when you play them to get combos, and then you also have forms that you can trigger them multiple times when you connect them to your canal. So I love this staggered combo-centric nature where you have multiple ways to trigger your combo pieces. That sounds awesome. The thing I loved about Hallertau was the cards and just being able to combo so much, and you could pick how much you wanted to invest in these different things. And this game even comes with additional sets of cards, so you're able to increase the variability from game to game by transferring and cross contaminating your different card pools. So it sounds cool. I hope this game is awesome and it lives up to the Uwe hype. A little disappointed by Tiwa, so hopefully Oranienburger Kanal can fill that void. The next game is Ra by 25th Century Games. This is recommended to me by Dan over at Chairman of the Board, so go check him out. He's a connoisseur of the dry Euro games, but he said this one is one of the best of the traditional Euro auction style, where you have a closed economy, everything is coming up, and not randomly per se, but in a distributed proportions where things are coming out and you're able to react to them appropriately. But based on what you're doing now, it's going to affect all of your future turns, which sounds awesome that every decision does matter. The game looks beautiful as well. This new edition has artwork by Ian O'Toole, but you still have that solid Reiner Knizia design. You have additional gameplay expansions, so like all mini expansions and tiles. And overall, I think the aesthetic is awesome. And I hope, and seems like it, the gameplay holds up as well. So this one looks like it's going to be a nice spot in our collection with that deluxe version. Yeah, it looks awesome. Can't really say too much about this because I haven't played it, but it does seem tried and true. And I'm most excited to give it a try as well, just because the game itself looks very neat. I like the Egyptian theme. Next game here is Robomon, the tabletop adventure. Hopefully this is my Pokemon game that I've been wanting. Hopomachus Victorum said that it was sort of supposed to be like that, where you're getting your team of different characters. I hope that this one actually delivers on that experience of getting people, sending them out, and then using them consistently and leveling them up. The coolest thing about this, though, has to be the way it's presented. It's presented in the form of a graphic novel. As you can see here, you'll have this storybook rulebook that's next to the map, so you're interacting on both of them at the same time while you're building up your characters, and then you'll have spots for your 6 different party members and your character itself and sort of your own personal stats and commands. This sounds awesome. This sounds like something that you flip out the books, you're ready to go, you're driving around, you're doing your different missions, all with this Robomon theme, obviously inspired by Pokemon, but just take a look how fun this looks. It reminds me a lot of Space Kraken, where you're looking at these different pieces and everything is in that book, but you also have the collection aspect and getting new cards and upgrading them. How fun does that sound? So you have different upgrades, different level ups, and it makes sense in the robot world. You're getting pieces to upgrade them. I am excited for this one, and that storybook nature of it looks like it's going to be something gripping and exciting. Got a comment here from Oregon State 86. I backed Raw 2. Excited for a blinged out copy. We love the original. I'm so happy you love it. That gives me hope that there are so many fans for this game, and I hope you enjoy the blinged out copy, because that's what I'm excited is. If a game is truly this amazing and classic, I'm glad it's gotten the awesome copy that it deserves. So this awesome version. Same feelings that I got when I was thinking about Castles of Burgundy. Our next game here is Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. And I am currently playing another campaign of Sleeping Gods right now. I was looking at it, I was like, I'm just going to play a campaign game I know that is amazing. And oh my gosh, it's still so good. It's been like 2 years now since it's come out, and I think it's still the best campaign game. But Sleeping Gods Distant Skies offers apparently better Sleeping Gods, which is crazy to me if it actually is the case. You have a smaller roster of characters that you're managing. You have a new location with new boards and new combat systems, new skill tests, new ways to resolve different stories. And on top of it, the icing on the cake here is you have narration. And this sounds amazing. This sounds like they took problems I didn't know existed in the original Sleeping Gods and have changed it and revamped, I'm still enjoying tremendously Sleeping Gods. I'm playing it right now and I'm still seeing things I've never seen before, which is amazing. I love that game so much, and I could just be in that world forever. But things that will help out with the quality of life for solo play and multiplayer, I'll take it. This sounds perfect. And you also have a little extra bonus here. You have this thing called Primeval Peril, which is a smaller entryway into the Sleeping Gods gameplay system where you can get an idea of how it plays in a short single session scenario. I'm actually really excited for that because that can be a separate box. It's sort of like what I do with Spirit Island. I have a separate box for Spirit Island for the target version so people can get used to the game and understand that. And then I have the actual huge copy of Spirit Island where people can play that more complicated one that has everything, the events and the different tokens. So having an extra box that's just for Primeval Peril, you can enjoy that experience. And if you want to dive into the bigger Sleeping Gods, you can. So some cool options there. And I hope that it's great. I'm still loving Sleeping Gods. So seeing that there's more of it, let's go. This next one here is one that I saw getting released at Essen this year, and that's where I originally saw it and was super engrossed by it. So I ended up late backing this one. This is Space Kraken. I mentioned it before when talking about Robomon, where it is all played in a single book, and this book has you using dice and a variety of cards to engage with it. It's a roguelike adventure game where everything is in the book. So there's no additional tokens or cards that you need to pull out for like the scenarios or anything. All of that's the books, but then the tokens that relate to like your current status and your different level ups and things like that, those are just to the side in separate pools. So you're never having to reference these things outside of your game area. Everything is just in that book section. And that sounds super enticing to me. You'll flip open the book and you have your experience, your encounter. You actually will use dry erase to mark in the book. I believe they had pictures of you like drawing and you had your characters on the right. That's so cool that everything's right there. You don't have to do this additional setup. And then when you complete it, it tells you where you go. And that determines like the randomness that's the scenario has created for you. So the whole idea behind roguelike is you don't know what you're going to get. You have that randomized setup. And this also has a soundtrack, upgraded tokens, complete world building, lore, new dice, additional things. This is an experience where you can sit down, enjoy it, have a great time. And as mentioned before, I was quite engrossed by the entire presentation of it. So excited to play this one. I hope that it's good. And I can't tell you much more than that. Yeah, this looks fantastic. So that is Space Kraken. Next game here is an expansion for Summit. This is Summit Sanity plus the Big Box. This adds new modular system as well as an extra storage way to do it. I kind of like the storage system that I have right now, but I imagine with this new expansion, it won't fit quite everything. In the Teams one, you do have a buddy that you can climb up the mountain with. Yeti has this giant creature that's chasing you. I've only played this one solo and cooperative, and my favorite way to play it is the cooperative mode, but this new one adds a sanity track where you're going to have something additional that you're going to manage. If you're unfamiliar with the game, you are a crew of climbers, and your job is to pack up, head up the mountain, and get as many people to the top of the mountain and back as possible. And your score is determined based on how many people successfully do that. But every time you make an action, you're generally going to have to spend your rations or your air based on the tiles that you're traversing. And there's terrible events that happen all the time. So this one here has additional ways to play in all the different modes. But as mentioned, I don't know how often I'm going to be playing those competitive modes. But it looks like it has a new sanity mechanism. So something that you see in like a Cthulhu game where it's not just your physical things you have to worry about, but now your brain. So an extra thing that you have to manage that could potentially kill you. But who knows? Maybe there's a positive thing to it as well, where you get courageous and get bolstered and maybe get extra bonuses when you climb up mountains based on your sanity. That sounds cool to me, where it's worth investing in your sanity. That's a cool concept. So that is the Summit Insanity plus the Big Box. The next game here is one I'm pretty dang excited for. This is from Awaken Realms Light. This is Tamashii Chronicle of Assent. Now, this game is bid to me as a short campaign game that plays similar to something like Bullet. Bullet is one of my favorite games, period. And in that game, you are taking these tiles from a bag, placing them into different columns on your board and trying to clear them as much as possible by using different patterns. Now, this one has something similar where you're taking these out, but the actions that you can take and the interactions with the main game board are based on those patterns on your main system. So you are still trying to manage them, create patterns, but to fuel a storytelling experience, which sounds awesome. I love interesting systems like this to take actions, and it's something that I know I enjoy from Bullet. So this one has a cool aesthetic as well with this cyber future futuristic setting. I think it looks super fun, and it looks like it's going to be on the more approachable side with something that's going to have a little bit of an easier barrier to entry as opposed to something like Tainted Grail or Etherfields, or even the most recent ISS Vanguard, seeing that it comes from Awakened Realms Light. But I love the aesthetic. This is like my favorite color palette, if we're being honest. I love these light purples and blues. It looks wonderful. So that is Tamashii Chronicles of Ascend. The next game here is the newest expansion for Too Many Bones, and it's supposed to be like the last big expansion, like standalone. This is Too Many Bones Unbreakable. This one takes you instead of to the water to the underground areas, where you now have a map that has spots for chips that you can flip back and forth that have the solid ground and then of course lava. So in this one you're managing not only the oceans on your adventures but now the earth itself as you're trying to not let it crumble underneath you. The new content also includes a variety of new gear locks. There's one that's magnetic that has these dice that will be going around the different boards, and my favorite character, I don't know if you can see it here, aha, his name is Carcass. He looks the most fun. He is a cook, and that is the best idea that they've come up for this game in a long time, in my opinion. A cook, and they have some amazing ideas, which is crazy that this is the greatest one. But it is a chef that as you play, you're going to be chopping up the different baddies that you're finding and using them in recipes. So think something like Boomer, where you're getting the materials to make bombs, but in this case, you sort of play as a party support where you are making delicious things for everybody. That's hilarious to me, and I'm so excited to see how this plays out in gameplay. There's just the idea of creating these different concoctions. And I imagine with the way that they do their characters, there'll be some skill trees where you could focus on bolstering yourself with the different recipes you cook or by helping others. But the coolest thing about the scenario itself, though, is that new game map. You're going to be able to have these chips that flip back and forth. And as you can see, I'm scrolling through all of this. You have all of the options for all of the Chip Theory Games libraries. My goodness, how far does this go? This is gigantic. I'm going to use this little thing on the side here. Here you go. Too Many Bones Unbreakable, though, has that volcano mechanism at its center. The other thing that I think this expansion is doing, which I am all here for, is it's supporting all of the classes that were not supported in Undertow. So if you've played the original Too Many Bones, you had 5 different colors of enemies that you could fight. There's the poison people, the beasts, the trolls. But in the Undertow expansion, they only released 3 different colors of characters. You had more goblins, more kobolds, and then more of the beasts. So you only had a lot of extra chips and variety for those 3 colors, but now in Unbreakable, you're going to get more support for the orcs and for the trolls. So you're going to have more variety in the colors that were sort of lacking in that other expansion. So I'm glad that it's getting fleshed out here, but I'm excited to play all of the different characters. There's so much to be excited for here. I could gush about this game. I think it's the best in this single shot exploration mechanism style game. It's so much fun. The fact that you're getting an entire arc of leveling up and experience in general in a single session feels so satisfying. And the fact you can explore so many different paths with a single character means the replayability is insane, but also the amount of choices in a single session are also huge. And so that feels great when you're making super important decisions the entire experience and getting to use them right away. Oh, such a good time. Too Many Bones Unbreakable, amazing game, and I cannot wait to play the chef. Next here, well, I haven't played that one. Played Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones, amazing game. Can't wait to play the new stuff and be the chef. Next, we have a promo pack for the Turczi Junior promo pack. And David Turczi had a child, and this is to help support that child. And it's a bunch of promos for games that we have a bunch of. So the only game we don't have here is Tawatinsuyu and Tricarion. But we have everything else, and I love these tiny little promo packs. They're going to be small little pieces that get added. And one of the coolest ones here is for Tekenyu. You have actually a card that is going to be a pretty impactful little piece. It's a small little rules change that's supposed to affect the entire game, which I love. I love when you're getting these little things that change the entire game dramatically. The other things seem to be just small little promos. So it looks like you have an extra boss for Vengeance. You've got one of the new tiles for Voidfall, a new adventure for Perseverance, and new art for your different promo packs. I think this goes into each deck if you decide to play with it. So it's nothing too crazy and game-changing, but I do think it is fun, and that is exciting to me. And it makes sense for a lot of these games too, where in Imperium you are having children because you're building up a civilization and growing it. In The Perseverance game, you are settling a new island, which makes a lot of sense. Is settling a new island and bringing up that population. So having an event that has to do with your newborn population makes sense here. So thematically and also just in general, I like the promos for these games. The next game here is Unmatched. This is the storage and accessories. And this is kind of funny because I didn't buy any of these storage boxes. I think they're a pretty big waste of space, in particular because of the way that they're organized. You still have to open like 4 or 5 different boxes to actually utilize these. And I didn't like that at all. So I made up my own storage situation for them using the BCW boxes. There's a video for it here on the channel, and I love that storage system. It basically is the same thing, but I use burger token boxes. And instead of being like the $40 for 12 here, you can buy 40 boxes for $40 with that one. So you can store everything for, I think, total cost of that organization system was $50 as opposed to this one was, I think, in like the 200 range, if I remember correctly. Yeah, let's take a look. Okay, battle box for 12 boost cubes. So 12 fighters for $60, $70 normally. 1 boost cube for 4 is $20. So every one of these is $5. That's a lot of money for these little bins that frankly weren't stored in an excellent way. They were asking you to store them in these big backpacks, and that's not something I was interested in all. I love my organization method for these. But the thing that I am backing this for are these, the battlefield. So they've taken some of the greatest maps in the game and turned them into neoprene mats with the stitched edging. So they've taken the battlefield that has the advantage spots where based on if you're in a higher area, you get better attacks. And they've also taken the one with the city from the Cobble and Fog map. And that's one of the best ones too. I love the different range spots that are sort of in the center, but also detached from melee attacks. Such a great map. The other thing that we're getting are the extra promo cards, because I think those are a lot of fun. It adds just a little bit more flair to the game, which is great. And makes your cards feel a little bit more special. Like, ooh, that's such a cool card. There's a reason we like playing with King Arthur. We've got some promos for that. It's really shiny. So it's fun, even though he's not like the most crazy strong or crazy interesting character. When you get those promos, you feel pretty cool when you got them. We also got a contest coin. This is for a variety of different things in the game. Surprisingly, it's for picking the map. It's for going first in the game. And so you'll flip it for those variety of things. Sounds cool. It's a neat little thing from this Kickstarter. So a lot of the extra tchotchkes, but none of the actual storage or organization boxes. Next game here is Wild Assent Lavon Rising. This is a... Lazy Squire Games. They're the people who are doing Storm Sunder. But this looked a little bit more interesting to me than Storm Sunder because of the shortened scenario for the experience. It reminded me of something like Kingdom Death Monster, where you're going out on hunts, you are hunting those things, you're taking them back. So a very... Dragon Quest? What's the game? Monster Hunter? It's Monster Hunter. Very Monster Hunter-esque, where you're going on these giant hunts, you're taking out creatures, and then you're bringing back their bodies in order to create your own weapons to go out and fight more monsters. So this one adds a bit more story to the game, which is cool, but also got the original version, so we can try it to see which one we prefer. But overall, it looks like it's this similar tactical experience where you have this large boss in the center, it's minions. So think something like Oathsworn, something like Kingdom Death Monster, but with a lot less commitment. You're able to play a shortened amount of sessions and have something satisfying get wrapped up in a couple of playthroughs. So I hope that the gameplay backs it up, and it is something that we do end up gravitating towards, and it's one that I'm looking forward to. We also randomly have some promos for this game, so I don't know how we got those. I think they were maybe in like a Dice Tower Kickstarter or something, but cool. I'm excited. Hopefully it's good. You got a new improvements, maps, events. Yeah, hopefully it's good. There's not much else I can say about this. I have a feeling that this one will take a while. The Storm Thunder campaign, I remember that being looking at that maybe like 3 or 4 years ago as well, and that also has not delivered to backers. So we'll see if this one gets here eventually. I think we did 2-wave shipping on this. We should get the first part before Lavon Rising, hopefully, so we can give it a try. But yeah, that's Wild Assent Lavon Rising. And then our last game here, I'm going to briefly talk about it because I actually talked about this a little bit on the other stream. And this is 20 Strong. So this is a small solo game put out by Chip Theory Games, where it is a game system. You have 20 dice, and these dice can be swapped in with different expansion content. So every time you play, you're going to pick a theme. In this case, it's Solar Sentinels, and then you'll take the dice and play a game. But it looks like it's actually going to be some form of lane combat, where you're using the cards as 3 different enemies, and then you're using your own cards to place on the board as units, and then progressively make advances on these different cards. So it's supposed to be a very small package, but also a short amount of playtime with all of the quality that you expect from a Too Many Bones or Cloudspire, any chip theory game, really. I'm all for this, having something portable but also awesome. Let's go. They also have already 2 new decks that come with it. You can get a Too Many Bones scenario and a Hopomakis Victorium scenario, and apparently they're not one shot. So once you play them, you can reshuffle them and have a completely different experience based on the choices that you make in the setup. So excited. I'm thrilled. I think that this is an amazing option for just solo play in general. We got a quick comment here from Red Winter. They say that they went all in on Wild Assent rather than Storm Thunder. I just hope they're able to deliver. They seem to be just continuously spinning the plates. Yeah, that's what it feels like with a lot of these companies. We talked about this a little bit with the crowdfunding games from Kickstarter, like Monumental, Scrumpy Card Cider. A lot of these big companies, but also small companies, are all in a similar situation where it just feels like they're not doing anything. And the progress, the updates, when you get an update back for them, you don't see any progress and you don't see anything that they've done in the last while. I actually really appreciate Mythic Games and Isofarian Guard, because when yes, they've been late forever, but every time they send an update, they say, hey, this is what we've done. This is the progress. And they actually show you the things that they've worked on and how it's progressing to the end. You can see like little status bars as where they are towards the end. I love that approach to sort of updating people, because if you're not really super invested, we honestly, as someone who's backed ridiculous amounts of games for SideGame, whenever I get these updates, sometimes I just skim them and then delete them. I'm not going to read too much into them, but I love being able to just at a glance look at something and say, yes, I could see where you are in progress. This is better than last time. And it's clear. You have sort of an end goal in mind and clear steps as to how to get to the end. So I'm hoping that that's the same for Lavon Rising, Wild Ascent in general. And hopefully Storm Thunder has the same thing. This company, I think they just need to get going. But that being said, that's everything. Those are all of the outstanding games that are on Backerkit, Gamefound, and IndieGogo. If you have any questions about any of the games that I talked about here, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to share my thoughts and opinions, and I'll even give you some little hints onto things that we may be backing in the future. Now, I am going to be cooling on backing overall from the company side. It's not being as viable as I thought when we originally got into this for the backing stuff for future releases, but I do think that there are definitely going to be some exceptions in games that we look forward to. So a couple of them are almost surefire hits. So Elder Scrolls, I think, is one that we're going to definitely get, because it is generally cheaper than getting it at retail, because you usually have to get those straight through chip theory games. So getting them on Kickstarter ends up saving us money in the long run, because we end up getting them anyway. And seeing that it's based on Too Many Bones, which is a game system we love already, that seems like a no-brainer. Why are we not getting Elder Scrolls? I'm not sure if there are any CMON projects that have been announced that we're looking forward to. If they do use that license for Super Fantasy Brawl sooner rather than later, we'll probably look into that. I know there were some murmurs about some form of Blood Rage expansion in the near future. So if that happens, that's going to be a thing that we're probably going to check out. But other than that, I don't actually know if there are any big campaigns that are going to be started. I know a lot of releases and a lot of deliveries are happening, but no huge campaigns that I'm like super excited for. If you know anything like that, or things that I should be looking forward to, or it being any awareness for, let me know down in the comments if you're watching now or later. I'd love to hear what you think about these games that we talked about, and just things that you're excited for in general from any crowdfunding source, whether it be IndieGogo or Backerkit or Gamefound. So that all being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream, but thank you so much for joining me here and checking out all of these games. I'm excited for when they finally deliver, and we're at this point where things do arrive pretty much every month. We're getting something in, so there's always something exciting to cover. What are you most excited to hear us talk about? What are you most excited to deliver on your end? And just in general, what are you playing and what are you having a good time with? Thank you so much for watching. SideGame Strong